Hey, it is Smooth Tim and Larry E on another segment of Tim's Tidbits, and thank you for joining us on another hump day. And hey, what's happening, Larry? How is things, buddy?
There we go.
Oh, I thought you lost your voice for a minute. I said, what, you got caught a cold and lost your voice and shit?
I'm gonna make sure I don't make too much sideline noise.
Oh, man. Anyhow, hey, even before we get started, out east, looks like they're having, from these Canadian wildfires, they're having, big wildfires up in Canada. Some in Michigan, and all this pollutant is coming down into Ohio and going over into New York, and they've got an air quality alert where they don't even want you going outside, whether you're healthy, not, whatever. So, hey, exercise some extreme caution if you're living over on the East Coast, and I guess it's going to be lasting for a few days for them. So, hey, I don't know if you've seen anything on the television, but it looks like smog or, fog is insane, just wrapped around the city.
It happens every year, I think. Because summertime is always fire time. Always, every single year. Something, usually California.
Yeah. Usually California. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that it's up in Canada this time and how the airstream's affecting it. I mean, living down in Texas, you probably don't see it. Up in Ohio, with the smoke, our moon is red at night.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really strange the way it is. Yeah, so we get a red reflection. Our moons have been red for about the past 2 weeks now because of the fire.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
it's cool though.
Insane. And also, not to get into shootings because we cover that too much. But there was a shooting at a graduation ceremony. There was a shooting at a funeral over in near Washington D.C. in Virginia. People, come on. All I can say is, people, come on. Let's keep it together, right?
Guns.
That's what I say too, my friend. That's exactly what I say too. Hey, anyhow, let's get on to some stuff. I don't know if you were able to keep up with it, Larry, and some people probably know what we're talking about, that Citation jet that they had to do a rapid response, actually. The Air Force did a rapid response. It was apparently carrying a real estate mogul, and her was along with her son, and they had a pilot. I don't know how many other guests may have been on that particular jet. But it had a flight from, I believe, Texas into New York, and it bypassed it, did like a U-turn and came back, and they did rapid response trying to figure out what was going on, right? And you couldn't get a response out of the pilot. Let's check this out. But it ended up crashing.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, insane.
In a remote, thick Virginia forest, investigators are piecing through the decimated remains of that private Citation jet that apparently ran out of fuel and crashed as Air Force fighter jets watched, unable to help.
Just prior to the incident, the pallet was slumped over.
Family members tell NBC New York that Adina Azarian, a prominent real estate broker, was on board with her 2-year-old daughter, Aria. Their nanny and the pilot headed for the Hamptons.
We're just devastated. You have to tell people every day that you love them.
It started at 1:13 p.m. Sunday as the plane left Tennessee headed for Long Island, New York. But at 1:28, just 15 minutes later, the veteran pilot stopped responding to air traffic control commands. The plane continued north all the way to Long Island before doing a U-turn and heading back towards Tennessee, still failing to respond to controllers.
Number 611 Victor Golf, contact Washington Center 127.9 to acknowledge.
6 Air Force fighter jets were scrambled along the East Coast. As the plane approached restricted D.C. airspace, 2 F-16s were authorized to go supersonic.
They had to break the sound barrier to get up to speed to get to the aircraft in question.
Their twin booms startling residents and pets on the ground as they fired flares, then flew straight at the Citation, calling the pilot.
This is an armed air defense fighter. You have been intercepted.
They quickly saw the pilot was slumped over and unresponsive as his plane continued flying into Virginia, where it crashed, having traveled 300 miles without radio communication. The NTSB is considering whether a sudden loss of cabin air pressure could have incapacitated everyone on board.
Pass out. So, Tom, if the pilot was incapacitated, how could the plane have done that U-turn and started heading south again?
That's what I've been asking all day. One theory is that the plane's autopilot had been programmed to fly to Long Island, then return to Tennessee. Once the plane hit its New York destination, the autopilot might then have plotted the return course without the pilot. Now, the plane was not required to have any black boxes. The NTSB is hoping to learn whether there were black boxes and also whether other avionics systems might have provided some clues as to what happened, Lester.
Is that a trip or what?
Man, it's crazy.
I'm like, wow, because that happened to a golfer too. I think I can't remember what his name was a few years back, where there was some type of oxygen issue on his jet, and the thing took a nosedive. But I think, unfortunately, four people, pilot, nanny, mom, and baby, lost their lives. That's an unfortunate thing. Fortunately, it was a remote area that it crashed. I mean, and then
did they shoot it?
I'm sorry, the Tudor, yeah.
Did they shoot it down or it just went down?
It just went down. But I question, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how are you going to tell from a jet wreck what happened? Could they? There's always a conspiracy theory that you could throw into that. Is it, who's seen what? So we took them down because it was a threat. We couldn't get any response, and it was starting to go over civilian airspace. Or do they shoot it down? Are they able to electronically jam a jet so it can just shut out? I don't know.
Yeah, I think they took it down, but
who knows? Point is
perished. Yeah, so
someone else perished. That's a damn shame. But wow, and I wish I could remember what that golfer's name was. But yeah, that's happened before, and you wonder, how something like that can happen. They say what they say? You have like 30 seconds to a minute to get the air mask over your face. You think those would
if the pilot was out, they still would have went down anyway.
Yeah. Point two. And who knows if they even were alerted that there was anything wrong? They could have been in the back napping out and stuff. They said Tennessee rather to New York. Who knows what they were doing? He could have had a damn heart attack too.
Yeah, anything could have happened.
Anything could have happened. So, yeah, I thought I'd share that, but that's a trip. But the rapid response, they weren't playing around, were they? Once that thing started heading towards D.C. and they, go supersonic, intercept that shit.
When they said supersonic, I thought they were talking about the rap song. Sonic. I said, what?
What?
They're real?
Really? They got them involved, too? Hey,
bring it back to the old school hip-hop.
Hey, you know what we've talked about before on this show, and it is China, Taiwan, USA, Taiwan Straits battling back and forth about who owns what, right? And now it seems that we had a couple of incidents with China and the United States here recently. Check this out, and then let's come back and chitty chat about what we know will probably end up happening, Larry.
It won't be long before somebody gets hurt. That's the concern with these unsafe and unprofessional intercepts. They can lead to misunderstandings. They can lead to miscalculations.
On the streets, in the skies, and on the sea, rising rhetoric, and the U.S. warns real danger of military confrontation. A growing list of U.S.-China flare-ups, fueling fierce anti-American sentiment among the Chinese public. Chinese state media adding fuel to the fire, blasting the airwaves with outrage. Public perception of the U.S. plummeting. A recent Chinese poll reveals more than half of those surveyed have a very unfavorable or somewhat unfavorable impression of the U.S. The U.S. keeps picking on China, says this man in Beijing. It feels like the U.S. is bullying China. Another making his views clear. I don't like the U.S. All bad things in the world are caused by the U.S. U.S. polls show many Americans have similar views about China. Even in polarized Washington, countering Beijing has rare bipartisan support. From the Taiwan Strait to the South China Sea to Singapore, the The U.S. and China seem to be spiraling closer to conflict. On Saturday, a near collision on the Taiwan Strait. The U.S. accused a Chinese warship of cutting off a U.S. Navy destroyer. The U.S. says both ships came within 150 yards, less than 500 feet of each other. The U.S. destroyer took emergency measures to avoid a collision, a close encounter U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin called extremely dangerous. They are not here for peaceful passage, he says. They are here for provocation. Tensions already high, getting even higher. Just days earlier, over the South China Sea, a mid-air incident caught on camera. A Chinese jet dangerously close to a U.S. reconnaissance plane. The U.S. calls this an unnecessarily aggressive maneuver. China says it was just safeguarding its sovereignty, accusing the U.S. military plane of deliberately intruding into China's training area. Washington rejects Beijing's territorial claims over nearly all the South China Sea, saying the United States will continue to fly, sail, and operate safely and responsibly wherever international law allows. Tensions rising ever since a controversial Taiwan trip by former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi last year, and this year's meeting in California between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Tsai Ing-wen, president of Taiwan. China also claims sovereignty over the self-governing democracy its communist rulers have never controlled, launching 2 rounds of massive military drills near Taiwan, only adding to U.S. concerns of a potential military miscalculation with massive consequences.
They beefing over the air and water.
Yep, that's what it's all about, beefing on air and water. And look what they're doing. Just, you can't say that that's not bullying somebody. If I'm going to cut in front of your plane with my jet, if I'm going to cut in front of your ship with my ship, that's just like trying to pick some shit.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to get the concept of how in the hell
they think that they own all water, what the water rights.
This is my piece of the sky. This is my piece of the water. That is so stupid. I don't get that. I can understand if you buy a piece of property because you can actually hold property in your hand and pay taxes. I ain't never heard nobody